Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. As always, really appreciate it. And today we've got another Cardano focus show, an NFT focus show. And for that, we've got my buddy Alexander. He's been on the show before to talk about a little project you might have heard of before, Unsigned Algorithms, to talk about something new that he's been working on, maybe part of a larger journey. We'll maybe talk a little bit about that. Maybe he's got some ways to tease you on what's to come next after this. But Alexander, thanks for being here, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me again, Hashoshi. I love your show, and I was really surprised. What was the subscriber count at last time? I think it was 70,000. I was like, yeah. It's more than doubled since then. Yeah, so congratulations to yourself.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I know a lot of people are wishing for another round of bull market since we've been in the thick of a bear market for a while now. But I think projects like what you've got on hand today are sort of primitives or interesting concepts to bring forward into a new bull market, and I'm really excited about it. So can you just lay it out for us? What's the fundamental on what you're working on? That's
perfect. We'll tie into that word later on, primitive, but because I think it really is important to how this kind of thing works. But just for some context, yeah, I released an NFT collection. At one point it was, I think the second largest NFT collection on Cardano. And I've had the privilege of kind of like a front row seat to see how NFTs developed over the past year and a half, something like that. And so I think last time we talked, I was really optimistic and excited, and I had a glint in my eye for like, what can we do on NFTs and what's going to happen? And, I just felt like dragged through the mud and, held underwater, trying to catch some air, because like what has happened has not been what I anticipated in my wildest dreams. And it feels a little bit like a ICO 2.0, reboot kind of thing, where it's just a bunch of scammers and this kind of thing. So I really like this concept in engineering of signal to noise, where, like if you have a very nice camera and microphone, same over here, right? Whenever you're trying to record something, you try to, isolate and capture the thing you're trying to record and block out some kind of ambient distractions that are not there, what you want. So signal is like the level of what you're trying to record. Noise is the ambient kind of background, entropy kind of thing. And so I'm alternatively decided to work on signal boosting projects, something like Unsigned Algorithms, which is like a positive thing to kind of explore the space, and oscillate back and forth between noise cutting projects, which I think Guchi, which is the name of this thing that I've been working on, is this kind of attempt to kind of clean up the space a bit, do some gardening, take out the trash, whatever analogy you want to use. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. And so people are probably sitting there thinking, okay, sounds cool. I like taking out the garbage. Actually, most people probably hate taking out the garbage. Bad example. I like cutting down the noise. I'd like to clean up the space a little, because undoubtedly there's a lot of trash in the space. So tell me how you're approaching that. What is Gucci going to offer that's going to help us do that?
In a word, the launch service or ability that you will be able to do is essentially open a short on the floor of an NFT project on Cardano. NFTs are obviously non-fungible, so that throws a little bit of a wrinkle into the whole idea of shorting, right? Like if I were to short you, this lens cap, not a lens cap, this lens cap, right? You could just hold it and force me to be liquidated by never selling it back to me or something like that, right? So we do something with the base primitives of what is on Cardano. A multi-asset ledger, native assets are part of it, and we basically just fungibilize the NFTs for free by, in the smart contract logic, saying, you can borrow or lend a NFT, or even actually a native token. It doesn't have to be an NFT of any kind. And this kind of solves this n-squared integration problem. I used to work in IoT when I was taking a crypto break, and it was always like, how do you integrate this vendor with that vendor with this vendor? This was like before there were all these standards, and it was just like this, you have this, laundry list of vendors to integrate, and making sure they all talk to each other. It's just this intractable problem unless you can like standardize, like, okay, we're gonna have n equals 3, and we'll make all the connections, right? So by having this ability in Cardano of native assets, we can kind of work at a higher level of abstraction. And kind of, I think what's most exciting from a Cardano perspective is, you know, Cardano people have been talking a big game for a long time, but to be blunt, like a lot of our dApps tend to be ported over from existing kind of use cases. And so as far as I'm aware, I don't think that like shorting NFTs is at least when I started working on this 6 months ago, I don't think it was a thing that was really possible. Maybe someone beat us to the punch. Let us know down in the comments below. I'd be curious. But I think it's really a positive thing. In any marketplace, you should be able to express a positive or negative sentiment, and that helps kind of keep things in check, essentially.
It's very interesting. So I kind of have two questions. One's more technical. The other one is maybe more philosophical or
Love it. That's why I love this show.
Okay, great. Glad to hear. So I'm meeting my brand. On the technical side, that when you first brought this idea to me and I first sort of read a little bit about it and we started talking about it, the first thing I thought of is this an application or a function that is made possible by the fact that Cardano is a native multi-asset ledger?
Exactly.
Or is it something that you could see happen somewhere else?
I mean, so I'll try not to put my foot in my mouth too much. I don't know really a lot about Ethereum and stuff. I took a big break from crypto from 2015 to 19 or so. So I missed the ICO stuff and smart contracts. But my impression is like in an ERC-721 smart contract, there are standards, but if you wanted to make, it'd probably be a pretty simple thing to make like a BAYC shorting application or an Azuki shorting, you know, dApp. But again, this kind of generic shorting service would be a little bit difficult given the complexities. My understanding is like minting contracts on Ethereum and most EVM chains are basically like key value pairs, where, you know, there's an index of the tokens and then the script or the payment address, owner address is just updated in the thing, right? So being able to anticipate and deliver a kind of generic interface that would work across all those things would be quite a complex thing. Whereas on Cardano, we have this base layer of just add another column to the ledger, right? It's not just ADA that you're sending back and forth. It's also all these random shit coins or, you know, DEX tokens, whatever kind of thing you want. And so we have an assurance, like at a really simple level, that allows you to make these kind of very powerful generic smart contracts that take a token. And a token is a token is a token, right? Like it's not going to move on you. There's not some weird empty account, you know, or some other weird function that can be misnamed and do something else to someone signing it, right? So yeah, it is more zooming out a little bit. I'm excited because I really hope that Guchi kind of provides an example to other people in the Cardano community to just think about the base primitives we have available to us with the EUTXO and a multi-asset ledger and start to deliver novel problem solutions to people in the space and not just porting existing dApps or services over to Cardano.
I completely agree. I've been beating this drum for ages. If this is a great example of it, I'm certain, and I've talked to a few folks, like there are others that are coming that are using the tools, the primitives, the design decisions that Cardano developers made early on that actually use those things for something effective, that are different than what's already out there. That's where Cardano can win. But without that, Cardano's just repeating history, and that's not what we want. And I don't think that's what the future holds. But the focus is on Gucci. So, you know, you look at this slide, it says, put your money where your mouth is.
Right?
Oh,
you read the kanji? You're a weaver or
there
something?
You go.
So yeah. For anyone who's not aware, Gucci is, when it's the character by itself is kuchi, which literally means like mouth or portal in Japanese. But it's often used in like iriguchi and deguchi. I think even in Chinese and Taiwanese kind of thing, it's used as the symbol for entrance and exit together with another kanji. And because this is kind of about liquidity, about entering and exiting positions, what's Gucci, you know, I just thought it kind of fit NFT culture a little bit, and especially with this tagline, right? Like, as we'll see, the kind of context of the whole NFT scene and what's happened with all these kind of, you know, famous projects and chasing moons kind of thing, is that after the we are going to make it kind of faded, right? There started to be a lot of like, especially on Cardano. I don't know about the other NFT scene so much, but you know, whether a project was deserving or not of its position in the overall, you know, ecosystem. And I myself got dragged into or instigated, I can't remember, some brawls on Twitter, some rumbles, and I thought, you know, it's so stupid being a keyboard warrior, right? Like let's just put, you know, money on the line, put skin in the game, and actually allow people to express their points of views in a substantial way. And actually, I think as a larger kind of step back, these kinds of data-driven kind of metrics can allow other people to make informed positions rather than just, you know, looking at. It's a lot different seeing that there's a smart contract live that will allow you to execute the other side of a trade, and there's this much, you know, actual support underneath the floor price of a project, rather than just like a bunch of Twitter bots that are saying, "Oh, this is amazing. This is, you know, best art, best community, best Discord, whatever," right? Like that we've all seen over the years. So it's basically, you know, stop trash talking and just set up some unlicensed boxing matches to move us on to the next stage. And I also just think, as a side note, you know, being in the Cardano ecosystem and kind of stumbling into NFTs through my kind of design and art interests, it's really, I can't think of a better way for non-Cardano crypto people, which I include myself. Even though I'm dominant in Cardano or exclusively in Cardano, I always tell Cardano people, I'm not a Cardano maxi, I'm a crypto maxi, and I happen to think Cardano is the best instantiation of a crypto that we have today, for all its pluses and minuses. But I think, you know, this is such a kind of funny thing to fit into the whole like Cardano NFTs LMAO kind of meme that's going around, right? Like, what other dApp could get people to try out Cardano than potentially shorting and making money on the fall in price of Cardano NFTs? And hopefully, you know, when they experience a little bit of the low transaction fees and the speed now that, you know, Sunday Swap is launched and we can get through the queues in a reasonable amount of time, I think it could be a really interesting way for people to try out and test Cardano. So that's where we're at.
Definitely. I mean,
does that make sense?
It makes sense. The interesting thing to me is that I agree. I can't think of an example of this elsewhere, first of all. NFT markets have traditionally been, and there's a reason why I don't play in them very often from a buying NFTs and stuff. It's because the whole culture is focused on floor price, and that floor price needs to go up. And it's FOMO. How can we, well, it's on the slide, okay? Yep. It's FOMO. It's how can we make our NFT make us money? And that's the team, or that's the existing holders.
Yep.
There's no counterbalance. There's no free market. And that's the ethos of the space. If we want to be free market decentralization, there needs to be both sides of that equation. And I assume that's kind of where you're trying to land here.
I think it's Warren Buffett's like Charlie Munger guy, like, maybe it was Warren Buffett, like, you show me an incentive program and I'll show you the results. Like, the results you get are a result of the incentives that you have. And right now, all the incentives are around boosting the floor price, which is like the absolute most idiotic wording in the crypto space, because the floor is a goddamn ceiling, right? It's if you were on Binance looking at if these NFTs were all fungible, it would be like a red cell wall. Right? That floor is not like what you can support yourself. It's resistance against upward movement in the price. And so what we're hoping to do is actually institute a real floor underneath the market, you know, action price, whatever you want to call it, in the middle, and show that there is some kind of actual interest in a project, and also allow people to make money on the fall in price of a project. And I think that will force people to kind of be more careful. I see a lot of sad things of like people investing in NFTs, and I think it's like, it's so stupid. It's like it's just, you're not investing, you're speculating. And it's okay to speculate, but don't call it investing, because it's just a total coin cost on whether or not this project will rug or do half of what they say they will do. So yeah. And when I came up with this, there was a lot of wash trading going on, which was really started to get me upset. Where for people who aren't familiar, and that's what got me into this Twitter drama, was like a few of these projects were buying and selling their own NFTs. And if you looked at the transactions, it was obvious that was what was happening. But because the NFT market is so frothy and people just look at like volume as an indication of liquidity, they were just basically paying the marketplaces these fees in order to appear at the top of the charts so that they could drive interest to their projects. And so I felt like the solution to these problems is basically allow to create that incentive that if the price of a project goes down, you can make money. Because I think if you create that incentive, it allows for healing to occur, right? Because basically, like, shit flows downhill or water flows downhill, right? Like I don't need to fix all this. I need to create like a wind turbine that can capture this wind and then create energy with it. I don't need to actually do the whole thing. And so right now, if we were to look at the seesaw, there's just like one kid on one side of the seesaw, and there's no other counterparty, right? But what I'm basically doing is putting this person in on the right that will allow there to be some kind of more rational takes. And I hope that will actually depress the rise in price of a lot of NFT projects, because people will realize that if there's money to be made in something not going up or even going down, like, I need to think much more carefully about what I'm choosing to purchase and why I'm purchasing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it gives people, because now if you want to invest in an NFT, and just for what it's worth, if folks are watching, a lot of people message me like, oh, are you buying this Cardano NFT project or this Solana NFT project or this Ethereum NFT project? The answer is almost always no. The reason is I don't see NFTs yet as an area where I can, over the net of time, make money. In reality, it's not an investment to me. It's me tossing money into the ether, pun intended, and trying to figure out maybe I'll get something back. I like to invest in tools that will advance NFTs to the point where I think they'd be worth something.
I think a casino is a much better bet, like, just in terms of like risk-adjusted returns, right? Like, the house always wins, but there's like usually like a 52-48 split, that like 48% of the money comes back. Like, in most NFT projects, like, it doesn't come back, right? Like, they go to. I love that old Bitcoin guy, like, going to zero, right? Like, that's where I see most of this stuff going. So just to take us through like what is actually happening here. This is a two-sided marketplace. It's like Airbnb or Uber. We're not putting any capital into play because I made some decent money, but I don't have enough capital to finance the shorting of these platforms. So basically, there will always be it's a peer-to-peer decentralized lending shorting platform. And so you can either short the floor of a project or make money off of people who don't like your project if you're actually bullish. So, going with the base primitives of
Alice
crypto,
and Bob.
Alice is a bull, Bob is a bear, right? On a specific project. Guchi is kind of, facilitating the interaction of these two parties to monetize or put some skin in the game to their disagreement in perspectives, this kind of information asymmetry. So what happens is, Alice has an NFT. She puts it into the script address, smart contract. Bob collateralizes this thing. A listing, which we'll see in a second, can be initiated by either party. Either you can put an NFT in and say, you got to collateralize it with this amount of ADA, you can borrow it for this amount of time, and I want this % fee. Or you can put the ADA in and say the policy ID, which is basically a cryptographic signature in Cardano land that kind of binds the monetary policy of anything. And so technically, I should be saying you're not shorting the floor of a project, you're shorting the floor of a policy ID, if we want to be technically correct.
Right.
Because there are some projects that mint across multiple policy IDs, and we have no aggregation on our side to say, like, an early Cardano kids had 40 seasons of mints. Each mint is in a different policy ID. So you have to be aware, just because the floor price of like season 5 and season 7 are different, Like, you are not shorting Cardano Kids, you are shorting Cardano Kids Season 7, right? So it requires a little bit of savviness on the part of users to be aware of that. We'll try to include that in the documentation to make it clear. One of two things can happen once this contract is initiated, right? To be clear, Bob has to take the NFT he gets from Alice, right? When he puts his ADA in, he gets the NFT. We will eventually offer selling on our platform of a generic like collection offer, I believe it's called on other ecosystems, right? Just buy a thing. But right now at launch, he will basically take this NFT and sell it on JPEG Store or whatever NFT platform he wants and lock in a sale price, right? Let's say of 900 ADA, right? He's then hoping that the floor price drops to 700 or 500 or 400 ADA, right? And he can rebuy any other NFT from that collection, and he sends it back to the smart contract. It goes to Alice, and he gets his collateral back, right? And the collateral, I should clarify, should be a multiple of the floor price, like 1.5, 1.2. But all these parameters, the other thing I'll say, all of this is designed Oracle-less, so that we don't, it's incumbent on market forces to control the prices of this thing. And that's where a lot of the cleverness comes in. How do you design incentives such that people are incentivized again to perform correctly and without having oracles driving this thing? So, you know, that solves a problem. There's also technically really no way you can be liquidated in this short. You can just be on the underwater side of a position. And so let's say what happens here, like, let's say for whatever NFT we were talking about, the floor was 1,000. Maybe he collateralized it with 1,500 ADA, right? Because that's what Alice was asking for. When Alice sets her 1,500 ADA as the collateral level, that's basically some downside protection or upside protection, depending on your point of view. It's saying as long as the floor price of this project is below 1,500 ADA, Bob has an incentive to come back and close this position before the duration expires, right? So even if it goes up to 1,400 ADA, you know, and he sold it for 900 ADA, he can still save 100 ADA of losses by buying a NFT for 1,400 ADA, closing the position, getting back his 1,500 ADA, right?
Yep.
And so Alice should basically only enter into or set collateral positions at basically an exit price that she's comfortable with. Like the floor today is 1,000 ADA, but you know what? I'd be okay with selling this thing for 1,500 ADA, right? Does that make sense? So if Bob disappears, you know, the contract expires, which is a parameter. Again, you can do this for however long you want to, before he comes back to the thing, she has basically an endpoint available to her to claim the ADA that was in the thing, and the collateral, right? So she's executed a sale. And we should say, in this like NFT liquidity strap market, this is probably like the killer app or one of the main selling points of this thing, is that right now the only people participating in the NFT market are people who are bullish, right? And just intuitively, it seems like there's probably like 3 to 5 to 10 people who are bearish on NFTs for every one who is bullish, no?
If not more.
More, right? Like it's just like, even in crypto space, right? Like, so what I think this will do is allow the size of the market to just go up by including the other point of view. It's like, you know, going to a dinner party where everyone agrees with each other. It's like the dumbest thing ever, right? Like, let's have some
What do you talk about?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Number go up. So just to kind of say what the incentives for people to participate in this platform are, you know, Alice has basically a lender fee. She can set a % of the collateral that she will get regardless of the successful completion of the thing or not. And I'm imagining this is probably somewhere between 1% and 5%. But again, Alice has total freedom to set her percentage at whatever % she wants it to be. And Alice is competing against all the other Alices to have the lowest percentage, right? That's how it's Oracle-less, is that it's just a market that's allowing this to happen. Oops. And also, Alice has an incentive to put in like the shittiest NFT she can from the policy ID. Because if she does, you know, she's going to get back another NFT. So you shouldn't put like your Dino Space Bud into this in version 1 because it will be replaceable by any other Space Bud. Does that make sense? Right? Because we're just matching on the policy ID. But if you play your cards right, and if Bob gets squoze, right, there's a chance that the lowest floor price space bud at the time that he closes his position is actually better. So I think it's kind of like minting again for your favorite project. There's some kind of chance, people seem to like that, of getting back something new. So I assume everyone has these kind of like trash NFTs in their wallet of a project they're bullish on, that like they have no emotional connection to or anything. Yeah. And this allows you to basically get some churn or some yield on the value. Because if you imagine most of these shorts are for 2 weeks, you're earning 2% on the collateral to lend. If you have 26 2-week periods in 1 year, in one 52-week year, 2%, that's a lot of yield that you're, in my mind, this is actually like real staking for NFTs, right? Yeah. Like you put these in and you can actually earn a good chunk of money on the collateral fees or lender fees. For us, for Gucci, we're going to be playing with different models. We might move more in one direction or the other. But we will initially have transaction fees, 1 to 2 ADA to list, just to kind of limit spam on our platform and to encourage high quality listings. It's not to really, that's not our main monetization. We will also have a flat percentage, of 1 or 2, some kind of percent kind of thing that we will take on the collateral. But conceivably, what we're thinking is the real moneymaker for us is all the funds locked in the smart contract will be staked. And we've recently got that working on the in the smart contract, and so potentially, we might be able to eliminate all fees from the platform and just live off of the float, essentially, of the money tied up in the smart contract, which would be pretty exciting, I think, as an alternative model for funding smart contracts on Cardano or development on Cardano, right? And Bob gets the opportunity to profit from the fall in price of something that triggers him when he sees it scroll across his Twitter feed, right? Which I think is pretty valuable. So I am going to try to load up a demo right now. If it doesn't work, because live demo, I do have some screenshots here. Cool. So first, this is, like we said, there are 2 different ways to put a listing into the site. One is start with the ADA and say the policy ID and the duration and the terms you're willing to give to a lender. And the other is to put your NFT into the contract and say the terms. I imagine, and that's why the default is borrow offers. I don't know, although we will support it, how much people who are bullish on a project will actively put up their NFTs for someone to borrow them to short it. But I think having ADA on the table, kind of, in this market where people are strapped for liquidity and making a potential sale, having the ADA on the table, it's a little bit like a lot of people don't sell their stuff on eBay or whatever because of the hassle of listing. But if you have an inverse like sell it now button where people, imagine eBay had, I want to buy a used, cloud lifter, this little, microphone amp thing, whatever, right? Like, and you just had to click, I'll sell that to him. I think that would motivate a lot of people to get off their butts and do something, right? So that's the idea there. I'm going to connect my wallet quickly. This is running on pre-prod. And so, we basically, you can see there's different projects. If we wanted to view the details of this thing, this is no shade to any of the projects listed here. We were just selecting random projects from, the list of NFTs on Cardano. You can select an asset. This is looking at the assets in my wallet. I don't have a Pavia NFT in this wallet right now, but if I did, I could select it and hit submit, right? And from the other side, lending, these have been basically not collateralized, but had an NFT placed in them. You're not even, we might show images on this site, but right now the thinking is we'll just have a link to pool PM and the metadata. Because again, we don't actually, this is not an NFT marketplace, right? If someone screws up and they list like a Spacebud Shark at the floor price, if you're a savvy user, you might be able to pick it up quickly and just pay it back with another floor piece or just essentially buy it. But that's really not the point of the platform. We're not trying to be yet another NFT marketplace, which there's like 30 of on like every chain. This is one specific functionality. when we were kind of coming up with this, my kind of main idea was like Wordle for shorting NFTs. Like, I'm not trying to be a platform. I'm not trying to be this like, gargantuan thing that's growing into everything. But that's kind of the main idea there. There's also, let's go over to wallet. This is where this will be cleaned up a little bit, but basically this is like all of the contracts that you have live, right, at any one point. So whether you're lending or borrowing, this screen is not done. We won't hesitate on it too much, but basically, if you have the ability to claim ADA out of a contract because it's expired and the borrower didn't return, you can do that. If you have a listing up, this cancel button, which hasn't been had a counterparty, like a second person join up into it, you can just take it down at any time. Pay a 1 ADA cancellation fee or whatever, and get your ADA or your NFT back. If you have if you've borrowed something and the timer hasn't run out, you can always send something back into it, right? And that's how that's working. So it's a really simple, concept. There's not a lot of UX or branding associated with this thing. The main innovation and the idea is to just work with the base primitives of the network and try to solve a problem, a perceived problem that I think people have in the space. I lost my presentation. Oh, yeah, so we were able to do that. Any questions or specific screens that didn't make sense? I know that was kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah, my main reaction would be if somebody wants to take this application behind the scenes, the operative components for this, they wanted to integrate it into their marketplace, or they wanted to integrate it into a front end that they've built on their own. Totally fair game to do. Is that how you imagine this playing out, or do you think most folks are going to use this through your interface?
So I've been pretty vocal, and this is where I'll need to be checked a bit, about the need for open source development on Cardano, because Haskell is a real, bear of a language. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. But I think we really need open source development on Cardano, because I hate this idea that all of us are struggling to learn Haskell, and we're all like doing the same 5 projects over and over and over, and we're not, incrementally improving them. But at the same time, I am also aware of things like Uniswap, SushiSwap, and right now the default position that I have, which is like the compromise, is that the previous version of whatever we have live will be open sourced. Does that make sense? So whatever bleeding edge features we've incorporated, that will be maybe in a separate repo. But once we launch ship version 2, we do intend to open source version 1. We might improve that. We're not going down the route of auditing. It's me and another guy who have made this. We do not have funds to pay for an audit. So we're thinking probably some kind of like community-led audit or open sourcing, mini open sourcing, something like that. It's a problem that we are aware of and we need to address. But my heart is in open source development. I have the strong opinion that like information is meant to be shared, paywalls, and I just think information is like water again. It flows downhill. Like, it will go in any nook and cranny it is meant, or it can. Right. And so I don't want to be on the other side of that. At the same time, I had a friend who worked in the pharmaceutical industry, who was my neighbor in grad school, and I kind of understood, like, yeah, you can't really invent medicines if you don't have a few years of exclusivity to make bank on the research invention of the thing, right? So it's in a perfect world, I would like to open source it from day one, and we're not. We may do that. It's just an internal discussion we're having right now. Can we be protected? We would be. But to answer your question, we'd be very happy for other marketplaces to just integrate this into their thing. I've been in communication with some of them to try to get them to institute this collection offer, right? Which is just for people who aren't aware, it's like the ability to pay X ADA or cryptocurrency for an NFT, any NFT from a collection, right? So like, I will pay however much ETH for one BAYC, and I don't care what one it is. If they don't have that, funnily, our smart contract kind of works that way anyways, right? So we can basically just set a borrow offer where the duration is 0. Does that make sense, right? And basically, you're offering to borrow an NFT, but we will in the front end basically just say this is to, just sell any NFT from this collection. And what we're hoping that is going to do is actually establish a real floor of 10 people, or there are 10 orders at this price level for this NFT, and they're hot, they're live. If you send an NFT to that, you will get the ADA in that smart contract, and that will basically. I understand that it's a little bit of a laborious thing. When I say this is a shorting platform, maybe, right? It allows people to short, but we are not executing the multi-step process of borrowing an asset, selling the asset, maintaining a margin account. It allows you to make money on the fall in price of a project, or to earn some alpha on your holding of a project, but it's not really a end-to-end shorting solution, right? So there is some manual work involved, and that's where version 2, version 3, if this actually gets some traction and some revenue, we'd like to continue to develop this and not spread horizontally, but vertically, down and deep drill down into facilitating the UX of this kind of thing.
Makes total sense to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of touched on this at the beginning, but how is all this possible? I skipped over these screens actually, but maybe these are just what it means to lend an asset, what it means to borrow an asset on the platform, right? Setting these different things. But the whole thing is basically plumbed together with this idea of a native asset. If you are a smart contract developer on any platform, if you want to work with another different smart contract, you can kind of anticipate that and maybe call a specific endpoint and do something with it, right? And that's pretty hunky-dory. But it gets complicated when you have N smart contracts, right? And you're trying to make all of them work with all of the other ones. And this is again, I'm not an Ethereum person, but my understanding of how a lot of this stuff works, on the positive side, Adzuki, I think, that little anime left-facing, whatever, ETH project, they did a lot of innovations that made it more efficient to mint, right, and saved a lot of gas fees and this kind of thing. But at the same time, it's a slightly different thing, and you can have standards that kind of address this, but it seems like a hairy problem to me. Whereas because this is on Cardano, we have this base level guarantee at the core of the ledger that these are just tokens, and we can lock them. We can say that you can redeem them or get them or send them or whatever, right? Without worrying about the specific nuances of how they were minted or what they are, right kind of thing. They're just tokens. They're just a kind of genealogy and a value, right? Where did they come from and how much of them are there? And for people who aren't aware, NFTs on Cardano are just assets of which there is one, right? There's no difference between a DEX token and an NFT token, except these policy IDs are basically like surnames, right? I'm Alexander Watanabe. My brothers and I don't have a sister. My brother has the same last name as me. My father and everyone, right? And we all have different individual first names. That would be pretty fun if we both had two Alexander Watanabes in the same family. But basically, what we're saying is, when you borrow or lend an NFT, you're not borrowing that NFT. You are borrowing this amount. One, or we actually will support in the future multi-denomination. It's already built in the smart contract. But what do you say? You're borrowing one of that surname, right? And you need to return one of that surname or forfeit your collateral. Right. So that's what it is. And I think this is going to enable, if you just think about it from a developer's perspective, it's so much easier to ensure cross-compatibility across all these different things without having to worry about some malicious endpoint in a minting token, smart contract, whatever, that could drain a user's account if called incorrectly, right? So that's where it is. We're hoping to launch maybe mid-September-ish with this. It's been a long time coming. We've had a lot of fun with various, you know, Cardano development related things. Unfortunately, my co-founder was otherwise occupied today. He couldn't join, but if you're interested, he'd be happy to have a chat at some point in the future if you wanted to do a deeper dive. But yeah, that's where the structured side of the conversation ends.
Nice. Well, I mean, there's a lot of information to digest for folks that are watching or listening. I think that what would be helpful in the future, potentially, I'm just imagining folks that want to use this after launch would love to do, or would love to have like an FAQ, a demo, a how-to.
Gonna do some screen. The funny thing is how we developed this. We did the smart contract first because that seemed like the hard part, right? Everyone talks about Haskell and Plutus on Cardano. And we left the front end till the end, which was supposed to be the easy part, and it is much easier. But the reason those documents aren't done yet is like they're in the process of being made. So there will be like a video walkthrough of like, how do you express this intention, right? Click here, go here, do that, because it is a pretty complicated, you know, transaction you have to execute in order to capture the windfall that could come. So totally agree. We have some FAQ that we're working on, but I think screenshots, videos will hopefully make this exactly the steps that are necessary to do this clearer to people.
Amazing. Well, Alex, this was incredible, man. I think next thing we should do is line up like an AMA and a demo once everything's all settled out. It can be you and your co-founder. We can do that.
Love to.
But I would encourage folks who are watching or listening, leave your questions, your comments, your thoughts in the comments section below. Really valuable stuff. Same thing we had back in the early days of Unsigned Algorithms. Lots of cool questions and thoughts. And that was the very beginning of that. So please do. This is breaking new ground. And I've always enjoyed watching builders in the space build cool things. So most of all, thank you for folks who are watching and taking the time. And Alexander, I hope you have a great rest of your day, my friend.
Thank you so much. Sorry for talking too long. Cheers.
Hey, no worries, man. Hey, 43 minutes of top tier information.
Yeah, sorry. I need to learn. I've never. Yeah, I need to make that shorter.
No worries, man. No worries. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your week. And until next time, cheers.